Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering the USMNT's disaster class against Colombia, Mbappe's comments on the Euros being more complicated than the World Cup. We discussed the Manchester United managerial situation, with Thomas Tuchel and Pochettino not being options anymore. We discussed the top 5 games to watch at Euro 2024. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show. I'll be giving you my reactions to some of the top headlines in the soccer world. Before we start, I'd like to ask that you like and follow the show. Also, we get a number of questions that come in during the show. So to ensure your questions get right on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see, and it also really helps grow the show. So again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. Well, the U.S. men's national team just played their 2 lead-up games entering this Copa Americas as they open up their tournament against Bolivia at the AT&T Stadium, just about 25 minutes away from where I'm at right now. They take them on Sunday, June 23rd in the opening game of Copa America. But beforehand, they played 2 friendlies, which they're going to play Brazil on Wednesday night, and they played Colombia a few days ago, which is a good test for them. This is in all likelihood Colombia, Brazil. Let's say the U.S. were able to get past. We're able to get past the, Bolivia and Panama and move on to the next round and finish either first or second. These are our top 2 these are the top 2 outcomes that's going to happen most likely. We're either going to face Colombia or we're going to face Brazil. If we can somehow manage to win the group, we'll probably be facing a Brazil team. Or maybe even a Colombia team, depending on if Colombia could get a result against Brazil. Who knows? But definitely Colombia and Brazil, if the U.S. were to move on, will be one of those two. It will be one of those two. And, we played Colombia on Saturday, and we got completely walloped by them 5-1. 15 shots to 10 shots. 15 shots for Colombia to 10 shots for America. 6 shots on target to 2 shots in America. 53% possession, 47% possession for Colombia. Just completely outclassed. Lost 5-1 at home, by the way, despite the fact that, Colombia took over that stadium, which is really a joke in itself. But, yeah, it's a really bad game, really bad game to have just, 10 days, 11, 12 days before the Copa America gets underway. And the performance was, to be fair, the performance was not as bad as what the scoreline shows. 5-1. It was 5-1. 2 of which came in the last, minutes or so with just reckless play in the back. Timothy Weah trying to dribble out, leading to 1 goal. Cameron Carter-Vickers trying to play out of the back, leading to another. It's very, very reckless. I do have to say, I think this experience. Look, this lineup the U.S. started off with, on the front of it, it is a very strong lineup. I mean, playing with Matt Turner, Joe Scally right back, Chris Richards, Tim Ream, Anthony Robinson. That's the back. That's the center back. That's the back 5 that I wanted when you consider the goalkeeper, back 4 and goalkeeper. That's literally the perfect lineup in my opinion. And then the front 3, Timothy Weah, Balogun, Pulisic. That's what I would have chose. Now the midfield 3, my ideal was playing, the World Cup lineup, which was Musa, McKinney, and Adams, MMA. But this is a different midfield in a Weston McKennie, a Johnny Cardoso, a Giovanni Reyna, which is a very open midfield in my opinion. I mean, Giovanni Reyna, he's a number 10 type of midfielder, creative midfielder. McKinney is more of that 8, but Johnny Cardoso, he can play as a double pivot, yes, but there's no real defensive nous in this midfield at all. And you could tell from that game. I mean, we were completely outrun in transition. We were completely melted. Whenever it came to playing out, just too much, losing the ball in bad areas, playing out of the back. Chris Richards, Tim Ream, they're two center backs that can, play out of the back. But Anthony Robinson, who cost a goal, he's not the most comfortable with the ball at his feet. Joe Scally, he's not the best with the ball at his feet. It was just a disaster class. Matt Turner, he's definitely not good at playing with the ball out of his feet. He made a few mistakes after having a horrible season this season at Nottingham Forest, which is a shame because, this is one of the most talented U.S. men's national teams there has been in a very, very long time. And, the one time that we get this golden type of generation, our goalkeeper is the one that doesn't step up, because we've had some amazing goalkeepers in our history. But yeah, we're in a rough spot right now when it comes to that position. But yeah, it was just so just too much losing the ball in bad areas. Anthony Robinson, he just looked like a headless chicken sometimes. So many mistakes. I talked about the Cameron Carter-Vickers mistakes who came in. Talked about Timothy Weah trying to dribble out. I think Timothy Weah, in terms of our attackers, was the only one that could, find himself in dangerous areas. You see the verticality he brought running in behind, receiving that ball. I believe, I don't know for sure. I forgot who made the assist, but it was a good ball. Calm little ball played in behind Timothy Weah. That's what Timothy Weah gives us. Fuller and Belligan, to an extent, he can provide that sort of, in behind nature too. He didn't really get much chances on the ball. Now, Gio Reyna, in terms of creativity, we couldn't get him the ball in areas that he could be effective. There was a period where we were kind of in the game, we were getting things going, but overall, it was just, complete class on one hand. Luis Diaz in transition just looked so deadly. Luis Diaz even had a chance to score. He hit the post, so it could have even been more. It was just a bad performance for the USMNT entering Copa America. Now, in terms of the lineup, there's not much wrong with the lineup. I can see why going with this. He wants to test this out. But definitely, I would not go with that midfield ever again, at least not in this Copa America, because it's just way too open. When you look at the fact, there's no real defensive nous in that midfield. Cardoso, he's more of a deep line playmaker type of 6 rather than a Tyler Adams work rate, cover spots, cover holes for the defenders. That's not really his game. And Johnny Cardoso happens to be a little bit on the lack of pace side compared to Tyler Adams. McKinney, he's a lock in the midfield no matter what. He's always going to be in there. And then Giovanni Reyna, I think we were missing the fact that, when Yunus Musa is in there, he's a guy that's willing to dribble out, to get past the man, he can play the ball forward into the channels of the wingers or Balogun, but he also can get the ball and drive past player, not just with ability, because Gio Reyna has the ability to do that too, but Yunus Musa does it with pace, and he's more comfortable in that area. Giovanni Reyna, you drag him deeper and he's away from doing what he does best. He's more effective being in right underneath Balogun, being up, right behind the front three, operating as that number 10 role. And I don't think we were able, especially against these good teams, I don't think we're able to get the balls in the right. There's not enough creativity with McKinney and Cardoso or Tyler Adams to, be able to find Gio Reyna in those right pockets where he could be deadly. So definitely I think Yunus Musa has to come in just to make that midfield a little bit more, more balanced in the fact that, there's pace in there, there's energy, there's also ball players in there. I think Tyler Adams, he's going to be very crucial too, because, we need his defensive nous, so we're going to need his ability to cover the weak spots of the defenders. So in terms of the lineup, I can't blame Berhalter hugely. Now, some of the things he was saying after the game, the players didn't do their jobs. Well, he's right about that. The players did not do their jobs. I mean, he's speaking truth on that. They have this way of trying to play out of the back, and they were, they just turned it over too many times. It seems like the pressure got to them, and they just looked nonchalant for many areas. But my thing is, there shouldn't be no surprise. I mean, the Nations League, we beat Mexico, a horrible Mexico team, but that's not really like, let's forget about that, because this Mexico team is god awful. Look at what Uruguay did to them. The game before against Jamaica, this is a Jamaica team missing a lot of their key players. Very weaker Jamaican team. They're up 1-0 through the duration of the game. It takes an own goal at the end to push this game to extra time. Now, eventually, U.S. depth and talent were able to pull through, but they were a minute away from being eliminated amongst Jamaica, which really, to be honest, covered our cracks, because the U.S. men's national team is not at the level. And this is losing 5-1 at home to Colombia is unacceptable, because if the U.S. want to, they want to improve. We've always been in that mediocre, in general, since the 2002s, we've always been in that mediocre range of, in the range of, the Australias of the world, I'd say the Australias of the world, the Denmarks of the world, even though Denmark did reach the semifinal, so but we've always been in that get to the round of 16 of a major tournament, the Switzerlands of the world. We've always been at that level. We've never been able to take that next step. And in my opinion, beating a team like this Colombia, this is the next step, because forget Brazil and France and all that. The next step right now, the step above us, is being able to compete with a team like a Colombia, and we're way off it. Now, this is a Colombia team on amazing form, 20 plus games unbeaten, but it was a bad sign entering this Copa America, and yeah, pressure's on Berhalter, big time. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we discuss Kylian Mbappe comments on the Euros versus the World Cup.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody...
Before the break, we reacted to the USMNT's disaster class against Colombia. We now move on to Kylian Mbappe. Comments on the Euros being more difficult to win than the World Cup. First of all disclosure, this is not the first time he's made such comments. He actually made some similar comments before the World Cup in 2022, then went on to lose the final to Argentina. There's a lot of Argentinian players that responded to these statements. So let's just start off. So Mbappe, they're in a press conference, ahead of this Euro 2024 championship. He spoke to the media, and he basically said that the Euros is more difficult than the World Cup. This is what he said, quote by quote. The Euros are complicated. For me, more complicated than a World Cup. Even if there is more pressure at the World Cup, all the teams know each other. We play against each other all the time. Tactically, it's a very similar soccer or football. I don't. Well, okay. Mbappe, this is not the first time I said that. Obviously, before the 2022 World Cup, he said this. This is what he said before the 2024 World Cup. The advantage we Europeans have is that we play between us in high-level matches like the Nations League. When we arrive to the World Cup, we are ready. Brazil and Argentina don't have that level in South America. Soccer is not as advanced as here in Europe. That's why the last world champions are always Europeans. Now, he said this before the World Cup, and then it ended up backfiring when he lost to Argentina in the World Cup final, and which is not a European team. But he is right about the European teams. Look, Mbappe, these comments don't surprise me per se. Kylian Mbappe has always been pretty arrogant, pretty egotistical, and he said a lot of things that's rubbed me the wrong way a lot, a lot. I think these such kind of comments is a little ridiculous because of the fact, number one, whether one is more difficult than the other, I don't think there's that big of a difference amongst the two. Number two, you see in European championships, there are dark horses that went on to win it. Let's go back to Portugal in 2016. This is a Portugal team, by the way. In my opinion, in 2016, when you consider champions of a major international tournament, this is a very, very weak team, in my opinion. Let's read this team that started off against France in the finals in Euro 2016. So they had Rui Patricio in goal, decent goalkeeper. Their back four: Cedric, Pepe, Jose Font, Rafael Guerreiro. Cedric playing for Southampton at the time, Jose Font playing for Southampton, Pepe. This might have been. I think this would have been his first year at Porto, post Real Madrid. No, he was still at Real Madrid at the time. Actually, no. So, yeah, a Pepe, strong Pepe, Rafael Guerreiro, my opinion, good left back, William Carvalho. Decent holding midfielder, João Mario, Adrian Silva, decent. Renato Sanchez, who was really the other, he was probably the top player at this European Championship for Portugal, besides Renato Sanchez, and then Nani up top, who was, at the end of his prime, basically, past his prime, and then also Ronaldo alongside Nani. And it's not like they had crazy depths on the bench. They had a guy like Quaresma, Eder, João Matinho, Danilo Pereira. But you see, a team like that went on to win a European Championship, and they played crazy defensive football. That's why they won a European Championship. In the group stages, they didn't win a single game. They moved on to the knockout stage based on third place, which was the first time that a World European Championship introduced third place teams potentially moving on. So they kind of got to the knockout stage based on the technicality, and they only won one game within 90 minutes. And that team was able to win the Euros, and that's not a strong team, in my opinion. When you look at the Greece team in 2004 that won the Euros, where there was no world beaters there. Again, they played very, very announced defensive football. They parked the bus, they parked the double bus, and they won. And they won the entire Euros. In fact, they beat the host nations, Portugal, in the first game of this in the tournament and in the final by playing defensive, by going on a run. You can't do that in the World Cup. Denmark, they win the European Championships in 1992, yeah. They won the European Championship in 1992 after not even qualifying, because Yugoslavia was disqualified, and they, on the eve of the tournament, they were put in, and they ended up winning the European Championship. I'm sorry, things like this cannot happen at a World Cup. Never will happen. You don't see these fairy tale runs. Every single World Cup champion that's at least within, modern football has always been one of the premium favorites entering. When you look at the fact that Italy has 4, Brazil have 5, Germany have 3, you see the top nations, they always win the World Cups because they always have to. In European Championship, there is a chance for an underdog story to happen. We've never seen an underdog story in a World Cup in terms of winning it. No, never. We've never seen an underdog story in terms of a World Cup. So for me, I don't see the point he's trying to make at all. I don't see the point of him trying to say European football is more. I'll tell you this: Colombia World Cup qualifiers is the most difficult qualifying confederation in terms of World Cup qualifying on the planet. In terms of the fact that there's only 4 guaranteed spots, or there's not anymore. Now it's completely different. Now it's completely different in World Cup qualifying, just because of the fact that what's it called? Just because of the fact that there's a 48 team World Cup and all that. But in previous, there's 10 teams in CONMEBOL, only 4 get a guaranteed spot, and the 5th place team move on to Interconfederation playoffs. And you could argue there's 7-8 teams from CONMEBOL that have a real shot to have a good World Cup, to get into the World Cup. Not only should qualify, but they could go on a run and reach the knockout stage games, because they have some brilliant teams in CONMEBOL. So I don't understand the notion that Mbappe is trying to make. It just comes off as arrogance and disrespectful to not only teams in CONMEBOL, but also teams just in general around the world. Europeans, they have even UEFA, they have a chance to play in Interconfederational Cup playoffs to get into the World Cup. They, out of their own choice, refuse to and settle for a little bit less guarantees in terms of teams in the World Cup. Why is that? Why is that the case? Europe is so confident in their abilities. There's people like Mbappe that say, oh yeah, Europe is more complicated. Obviously, the best league in the world are in Europe because all the money is there, because the infrastructure is there, and that's where it is. And that's Europe has historically been a great space for football. Now, obviously, a country like Saudi Arabia or the Americas, the money is there, or America, there's money there too, but the leagues are not as developed and all that as they are in Europe. But to say that there's it's much more complicated or it's more difficult, I just think it's a little crazy thing to say. I think if you put Brazil and Argentina in the European Championships, they're automatically they're always going to be within that top 3, always, of chances to win it. Brazil, in probably their worst run of form that they've been in a decade, after how they started off CONMEBOL qualifiers in this last year. They play England in a friendly in Wembley, and they beat them, and they beat them at Wembley. Now, obviously, Brazil is Brazil, and England is England, and as a Brazilian, as a fan of Brazil national team, I'll go in every game against England expecting to win, just because of, Brazil is Brazil and England is England. But it just shows, how the levels of things. And I just with this Colombia team now, and I'll give you this: CONCACAF, they're in a poor spot right now. CONCACAF is in a very poor spot. But just to say that, I didn't really agree with it whatsoever. Short break here coming up. When we come back, I'm gonna discuss a little bit on the United managerial situation.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast. Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed a little bit on Mbappe's comments on the Euros being more difficult than the World Cup. We move on to dissect the managerial situation going on at Manchester United. I don't know where to start with this. We've been talking about this a while now. There's still some reason it's June 10th, 2024, and there's still no public statement regarding the situation with Manchester United and Erik ten Hag, and instead we're getting reports from major outlets that managers are not gonna be part of it, like Thomas Tuchel, which he has sources have officially announced he will not be joining Manchester United. He will not be the new manager of Manchester United, which in my opinion is interesting. And Mauricio Pochettino, same thing. He's not gonna be an option if they sacked United. Tuchel and Pochettino have been, some of the top candidates, alongside McKenna, who is staying at Ipswich Town. Sources say they talked to his representatives before the FA Cup final, which is a joke in itself. It's interesting. Apparently there's concerns that he's not the right fit for Manchester United and how they want to operate, according to sources, and they want somebody, United wants someone similar to what Chelsea wants in terms of a yes man, in terms of a manager that comes in and doesn't want to take on the recruiting department and just wants to manage the football team. Seems like that's the kind of manager that Manchester United are looking for, which I don't understand that at all. It's very interesting. Now United are still on their end of season review, and they want to conclude that review by the end of this week, despite the fact that they have not set a timetable for this review. I don't understand this review thing, by the way. I don't think it should take this long to do an end of season review to decide whether or not a manager should be good enough for the job. I really don't know what Manchester United is doing. I can't sit here and try to comprehend it. It's been way too long. This should have been decided. Now, even if you continue on and you do sack Ten Hag, you're on option like 8 or 9 or 10 or 33 or 79 or 133. Like, you're on some crazy number in terms of how many people have you already approached, and you're 2-3 weeks late in terms of a new manager potentially coming in, getting his foot on to start the job, start the obligation that is managing this team, that's getting his players in the right opportunity to be successful, to come in and have a proper preseason. I don't get it at all. I really don't. I don't understand it in whatsoever. Glazers, they've been on huge fire ever since they came into United. They've been questioned their ability, their lack of spending, their not just the lack of spending, but how they spent the money, how they manage managers, just the way that they've run the football club, how they've allowed Old Trafford to turn rotten, the Super League and that nonsense being one of the major clubs in England that were really for it. Fans, they've been really, really fed up, and it seemed like there was this new group coming in, the NUS group, led by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, to come in and make the club, give it a little bit more structure in terms of running the football operations, being able to run the football side of it with football mind rather than a business mind. And they've came in, and it just seems like it's being run horribly all over again. It seems like it's the same old, Glazers United. I mean, not having a manager this late into, or having a manager but not deciding whether or not he's good enough to be sacked or not this late into time. Not making signings like $100 million for Anthony, signing Mason Mount for ridiculous load, bringing in guys like Casemiro and Eriksen, older guys, just to replace them a year on later with Amrabat and Mason Mount, who have both not been effective. Just a lot of bad moves from this United group, this new group coming in, and I don't think they are really the team to. This really is the next level. Oh yeah, this team, this new group of football operations is the team that bring Manchester United to the next level. They need to decide on this Ten Hag situation. But it's bad for Ten Hag. It's really embarrassing for Ten Hag. It's really embarrassing for Manchester United, and it's really frustrating for Ten Hag. Now, obviously, Ten Hag, he's probably on vacation right now, but to not know this late into season, and it's a very very disrespectful of United to make this kind of decision, after this amount of time. It's really not right. And I feel very bad for Erik ten Hag. And I mean, his fate is still in limbo, which is crazy. It's crazy. And they're approaching other managers too. So even if they were, let's say eventually they say, okay, Ten Hag is the manager, but it's like from a viewpoint of, well, he's the manager because by default we can't find nobody that's wanting to take this on. And is Erik ten Hag, does he feel comfortable with that sort of situation? I mean, I know I wouldn't. And yeah, I feel really, really bad for Erik ten Hag, and I feel bad for Manchester United fans because they thought they were escaping this bad ownership group in Glazers. Not that Glazers sold United, they still own majority stake in the United, but the main thing was the fact that this team can come in and do a proper football operations in US. They can run the football operations from a football point of view and not a business point of view. And yeah, I don't get it. You're supposed to look for the best managers, but they're looking for yes men. It's just like Chelsea. And they're both, in my opinion, both are poor run football clubs. And yeah, and honestly, if you look at Erik ten Hag and what he's done the last 2 years, it's much more than every single manager that's been post Sir Alex Ferguson, besides Jose Mourinho. Now, Jose Mourinho in his first season did win the EFL Cup and Europa League campaign. And finished second place behind City. That, in my opinion, is the best season any manager has had at United post Sir Alex Ferguson. But I think Ten Hag, in what he's done these back-to-back seasons, winning the AFL Cup, then winning the FA Cup, horrible season the second season, but pretty good season the first season. I think he's definitely second and behind Mourinho. Now, I'm not saying that's saying much, but I'm saying patience could be a virtue, and I don't get it. Why? You gotta make the decision right away. You gotta know, if he's not good enough, number one, if you want to sack Erik ten Hag, it seems like they're trying to sack Erik ten Hag if they think they can bring in someone better, like Thomas Tuchel and all that. Which, in my opinion, that's such a wrong and a disgusting way to operate. You should sack Ten Hag if you think he's not good enough. Point and simple. Now, if you think he's good enough to be the manager to lead you, then keep him. Let him, move on. Let him go through these rough points to see if there's, a smooth a smooth lane down the road. But, they're just trying to chip chop and cut and go this and do that and do an end of season review, which I think this is, I don't know. I think this gotta be this end of season review gotta be some sort of like joke, some sort of way to trick the public into, buying United time to see if they can bring in another manager that they feel better. Because it should not take someone this long to do this group of football operations to do a review of how the season went and on. What will they discover within these 2 days that they've been doing their little review? What will they discover that makes them go from Erik ten Hag should stay or to Erik ten Hag is fired, or Erik ten Hag should be fired to Erik ten Hag should stay? What are they going to discover? I mean, they were there watching the games all season. What are you going to discover during your end of season review? What? I don't understand at all. Why is this even a thing? Why is the media, why are we as fans delusional enough to fall for this? How do they even think? Why do they think we'll fall for this? Why? I don't know. Interesting. Short break here coming up. When we come back, I'm going to discuss my top 5 games to watch at Euro 2024.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Wow. Top 5 games to watch at Euro 2024. Need some water because I know I'm going to go on and on and on and on and on about this. Now, for my opinion, trying to make a top 5 is difficult because there is a lot of brilliant games in this. There is a amazing amount of brilliant games in this. You can't go wrong with any of them, in my opinion. But I do think there is a 5 that I have made that I'm looking forward to, and it's an interesting 5 in the fact that I think that there's upset possibilities. I think there's amazing ties. I think there's brilliant ties, and yeah, let's start off. Let's start it off. For me, has to start off. No, not has to, but for me, my number 5 will be Serbia versus England. Or no, let me go with my honorable mention first, actually. Or I have 2 honorable mentions in this. Spain, Croatia, Italy, Croatia. Those are my 2 honorable, no, not Italy, Spain, Croatia. That's my honorable mention in this. That is a game that we have on our second day of the European Championship on Saturday. That game is going to be a great game, a rematch of last year's quarterfinal or last European Championship quarterfinal. They don't get into this top 5, but that is a huge game. Potentially decides who could win that group, in my opinion, because that's number 1, number 2 based on my opinion. So that's obviously an exciting game that everybody's going to be looking forward to, and it's a good way because I think that's a good way to have a game to have second day to really kick off the tournament. But my number 5 will be the opening game of the European Championship, Germany-Scotland. Look, this is a Germany team that has huge pressure on them being the home team at this European Championship. This is also a Scotland team that's been on ridiculously good form in qualifiers. They've been very, very good in qualifiers, and they're playing very, very good football. They got some talented players in there too. It's John McGinn, Ryan Christie, Tierney, Robertson, Scott McTominay, which will be their main goal-scoring threat at this European Championship, which does concern me a little bit. But, they have some very, very good players, and they have a team, they have cohesion, they have managed brilliantly by Stevie Clark and his pragmatic ways. It's dull, but it's also beautiful at the same time. I love watching them play, and I think they're the type of team that can really give Germany trouble in that opening game, and the fact that they play a low block, and in past major tournaments in the past few, Germany has really been able to struggle to break down these teams that low block and are able to transition against them. They've really struggled against those kind of teams. And maybe bringing Toni Kroos back in can make the difference and being at home. But again, also another thing too that I'm really looking forward to, the Tartan Army, the Scottish fans, they really travel and they really are very passionate about their team. Can they go into that Germany into Munich Stadium and potentially outnumber the German fans? I think they're not outnumbered, but I definitely think they can put on a strong showing, because this is a German fan base that's kind of lack of motivation in terms of rooting for Germany. The passion and the passion from the fans is not there. You saw the surveys. 1 out of 4 Germans don't care about this European Championship. You see the World Cup. There was no Germany fans in general. They were not really there supporting their nation. Obviously, the Qatar situation probably has something to do with it, with Germany and their ways. But also, it's very, very, very interesting thing I'm looking forward to. And, if Germany don't get a result in that game, it can really be the start of another huge disappointment for Germany, and a great way to start off a tournament for Scotland, who have aspirations to do more than just be at a European Championship. My 4th game is Serbia versus England. Now, this is a game, again, they both start off their European Championships in this game. This is the third day of the European Championship on Sunday. Serbia take on England national team. Wow, what a game. Now England, a great way to see how England will do is the way that they start off their tournament. And I think they're going to have a proper test to start off their tournament, because don't sleep on the Serbian national team. The Serbian national team is a very good team, very talented team. When you look at Dusan Tadic, a very talented midfielder that's playing now in Besiktas, but he's still Fenerbahce, but he's still a very good player. 20 goals, 14 assists this season, 24 goal contributions. A very good player. And then you have the potential to play with Vlahovic, which is a finesse striker, just very, very talented, but also have the direct nature of Mitrovic. I think he could give huge difficulties for John Stones and Mark Gahey, which is probably going to be the center back partnership. I think those two number 9s could cause them issues. I think Serbia has enough ball players to make this a huge challenge for England in that opening game. I saw Serbia play against Sweden. They were able to be comfortable in giving Sweden the ball. Sweden had 20 shots to Serbia 8, but Serbia looked much more comfortable in the fact that they allowed Sweden to, get out the ball. And they played this game, by the way, in Sweden, and they won that game 3-0 despite allowing Sweden to be the more protagonist team, because Serbia were just more clinical than them. And I'm saying Serbia are, in my opinion, really, really talented team that should not be disrespected in this. They have guys like a Luka Jovic that they can bring in off the bench. So a Milinkovic-Savic, who's had a very good season. Look, this is a great way for England to start off the tournament. Now, there's rumors saying Trent Alexander-Arnold might start that first game. We'll see. We don't know exactly. who does he go with? Now, does he play Phil Foden in midfield and play that open-ended midfield with the Phil Foden, Declan Rice, and Jude Bellingham, knowing his center-back partnerships are kind of weaker? Or does he go in with a guy like Kobe Mainoo or Gallagher just to make sure the midfield doesn't get overran and have a guy in like Gallagher that, works hard and can protect the back line just a bit? Interesting, ways to look at it, and the fact that we want to see what England are going to try to do at this European Championship. And just a great way to start off for both teams. Now, Italy-Croatia, I have that number 3. Now, Italy-Croatia, in my opinion, this is a game that really will decide who gets out of that group in terms of top 2. Now, obviously, third place teams can move on and all that, but let's just forget about that right now. Italy, Croatia, this is a team, they're both teams that are probably fighting for that number 2 spots. Italy, they have their ability to play in European championships, in major tournaments. When they're there, they always show up, especially in the Euros. They are able to sandwich missing 2 World Cups with the middle of winning a European championship. So, they've shown to be able to do this before. Now, obviously, this is a team defensively, have a lot of injuries, and attack-wise, you don't know where you're going to get the goals. It's looking like the 9 is Kamaka. But when you're like a team like Italy, you never count yourself out. And if you compare the talent, just purely the talent amongst the team, Croatia are not overwhelmingly much more talented than the Italians. In fact, you could argue, the Italians are the ones now. Nicolo Barella, he's in the squad. He's banged up. But Italy do have a guy like Chiesa. They do have Jorginho. They have talented players. They don't have a Modric and a Kovacic and players of that sort or Gvardiol, but they Italy have some sort of thing that they're building. They're coached really well by Luciano Spalletti, and that's going to be the game that really determines, in that group, can really determine who moves on in that group. Obviously, forget the third place stuff. Now, France-Netherlands is number 2 in my opinion, and they're number 2. I'll say who's number 1 later, but they're only number 2 just based on the way the historical perspective of why I have number one. It's more an historical thing. But number 2 is France-Netherlands. Now, obviously, in terms of all the games, this is the most games that have the most set of talent on one pitch. Because if you look at it, it's brilliant. Virgil van Dijk, Nathan Ake, Memphis Depay, Koopmeiners, Frimpong, Dumfries, and then you look Mbappe, Dembele, Griezmann, Giroud, Kante, who's probably going to start for France, which is brilliant, or Konate, Theo Hernandez. There's a lot of talent on this team, on this field. The most talented game at the European Championships on both sides, when you look at both teams, can have the most set of talent on one field. 2 very, very good teams that are going to, really decide who probably wins that group. And the beautiful thing is we get this game second into the group, not one of the third games, which, with the third set of group stage games, gives teams opportunities to rest and all that. There's not really going to be that at this in this game, because this is the second game of the season. Both teams are going to go out fully. Now, another reason I have number 2 is, in the European, they played each other in the Euro qualifiers, and it was kind of one-sided. France won both games. They completely destroyed them in the first one. They were up 3-0 at halftime, and they ended up winning the game 4-0. And then the second game, they went into the Johan Cruyff Arena, and they also won that game 2-1, and they also were fairly comfortable in that game. So that's also another reason why I have it number 2. But I definitely think this is going to give us a huge watch, and we're going to be all excited. Number 1, Spain-Italy. Spain-Italy. It seems like we always get this game at European Championship. We got this game in Euro 2016 that came down to the wire. Italy moved on in penalty shootout. We got this game in Euro 2021. We got this game at Euro 2016. Italy were able to get past Spain in the round of 16. We got this game in 2012. Spain destroyed Italy in the European Championships. We got this game in Euro 2008. Spain, their first real breakthrough as an international tournament, were able to get past Italy in a penalty shootout in the quarterfinals. They're brilliant. It's mouth-watering. It's the stars are, it's a little, Spain will be going to that game with favorites because they do have the better players, they do have the better squad. But Italy in these kind of games, I think they'll make it difficult for Spain. Obviously, the way that they're able, I think they're gonna go back a little bit into bunkering down just a little bit, especially against a team like Spain, and play on the counter with a guy like Chiesa and Scamacca, and they're gonna play really on the counter. And it's going to make a great game to watch. There's going to be a lot of talent on that field, don't get me wrong, despite not having as much as France, Netherlands. But it's also the historical side of it. Everybody's going to be tuned in all around the world. The game is going to be played at Veltins Arena in front of 62,000 people. They're both going to pack the stadium. It's going to be a great game to watch. And that is my number one because of the historical side of it. And when you look at it and you're sitting on your sofa and you're seeing the Spain kit and the Italy kit, you're thinking, yeah, this is football heritage. This is European Championship heritage. Short break here coming up. When we come back, I'm going to react to some of the top headlines going on in the football world. Before the break, we discussed top 5 games to watch at Euro 2024. We now discuss some of the top headlines going on in the world of football. We start off with the reports coming out with it's a sad situation. Frenkie de Jong, he will not be available for the Dutch national team, the Netherlands national team at this European Championship. He was kind of in a race to get ready for these European Championships. And yeah, it's just not going to work. His ankle injury is going to keep him out. Very disappointing, and it's so heartbreaking when it comes to these major international tournaments, missing them with injuries because of the fact that they just don't come around often. And I couldn't be in this, in the situation of the players in those situations. It's just really just a heartbreaking thing. And I don't know, if I was a player, and then I had a European Championship or a World Cup coming up, and I was in the last month or two in my club season, I'd really, really be on my tippy toes because, that would just be a devastating news to miss out on an international tournament because of an injury. It'd just be really, really devastating on a whole different level. So, yeah. I don't know which one I want to go first. Okay, Real Madrid and Ancelotti, they have had some interesting talks regarding the Club World Cup. So Real Madrid, first of all, they have denied any sort of claims that's been out there about their potential refusal to play. They have denied that. They want to play in this expanded Club World Cup next summer. This in an interview with a newspaper in Italy. Carlo Ancelotti, he suggested that Real Madrid would refuse the invitation to play in the 32-team Club World Cup that will be in the United States next summer, not this summer, but the following summer. And then Real Madrid came out with a club statement saying, they said this themselves, at no time has its participation in the new Club World Cup has been questioned. And Ancelotti actually ended up posting something on social media saying his quotes were not interpreted in the way that he intended. This is whenever he spoke to the newspaper, he said players and the club won't participate in that tournament. Our single Real Madrid game is worth 20 million, and FIFA wants to give us that amount for the entire competition. Negative. Just like us, other clubs will refuse the invitation. He really sure sounds like he's refuting. They're saying Real Madrid are not going to play that. Now, obviously, there's like the Italian-English translation, and sometimes something can get lost in translation. But I don't know. It's interesting. Now, obviously, there's a lot of talk on this Club World Cup, with the players' welfare and all that, and just too much minutes played by players throughout the season and all that. To top it off with the Club World Cup, it's a little too much, or a lot too much, but that's another topic for another day. Obviously, I'm just going through some of the major headlines. Pep Guardiola, he has rejected any sort of notion that he has a chance to return to Barcelona anytime at all. He was asked on Monday if he would return, and he said it's a door that is closed. The Barca bench is, and this is what he said, the Barca bench is one of the most complicated because you have to manage many cases. In Manchester, everything we do remains inside, and at Barca, everything comes out. It's a really amazing, some of the things that former Barcelona managers, even Barcelona greats like Guardiola and Xavi has came out. Well, Xavi has not came out and said something. I'm sure he'll say something regarding this. You remember the comments he had after he resigned, telling them you'll never allow a manager to come in and stay here. It's amazing the way this Barcelona, it's a hot seat. It's a hot seat. It's a cooker, and some managers, they just don't want it. Now Hansi Flick, he maybe he has the fact that he's German, not a Spaniard. Maybe that changes it up for him, I guess. But look, it's an interesting situation. Nigeria lose their World Cup qualifier. Ghana and Algeria, they took victories. Nigeria lost to Benin 2-1, and Ghana and Algeria were still able to win, while Egypt drew after they were behind at halftime. As the African Cup qualifier, as the World Cup qualifiers for Africa keep going on the way, the Nigerians, who are the top dogs in Group C, have not won a single match in their opening 4 games and sit on 3 points, while Benin was 7. Now, they were able to lose against a team that was actually managed by Gernard Rohr. And yeah, it's a poor spot that Nigeria finds themselves in, and yeah, it's their World Cup qualifying chances are really on the in danger. Canada has held France to a 0-0 draw in a friendly in France. This is coming off Canada losing to Netherlands 4-0. So good bounce back for Canada, who want to enter the Copa America with some sort of decent form, in the fact that this is Jesse Marsh's first games as the manager of the Canada national team. They start off it doesn't get much easier for them, because they start off, they take on France, who were lost in the World Cup final. Then now in the opening game of the Copa America, they take on the defending World Cup champions in their first major international game since they lost a major international World Cup game since they won the last World Cup. So yeah, not the best start for this for Jesse Marsh and this Canada team. Czech midfielder Sadielik, he's gonna miss the Euros. He suffered an injury in the friendly. He was also part of the Euro 2020 match. He has 25 caps for his country, and he's gonna he was the captain and that played Malta and defeated them 7-1. He will not be there. He injured himself while riding on a bike, and he suffered a laceration in the leg, and that's a huge setback for Czech, obviously, because he's an experienced player. He was a captain for a game, and there's a reason why he won the armband against Malta. So, bad loss for Czech in a freakish nature, in a freakish way. This is the end of the show today. Wow, went by fast. So yeah, thank y'all guys for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.